As the new year is approaching, I actually wanted to make a probably controversial video, depending on who you ask, which is that you actually shouldn't set SEO goals. Instead, you should do this. Now, you might have noticed that I'm on a bit of a content binge grind right now. That's because every day for the next 30 days, I'm going to be uploading at least one video per day, although some days I'm going to do more than one video. And this ties in to what I'm about to be saying. So if you want to support the grind and the hustle, please hit the subscribe button, please like this video, and please leave a comment down below. But with that out of the way, here's why I don't think setting goals is wise for SEO. Number one, it is super unpredictable. Obviously, you're at the mercy of Google's algorithm. I made this mistake a long time ago, which is I used to set daily goals, or not daily goals, I don't know why I said that, but yearly and monthly goals for traffic and things like that. And what happens is when you create lofty goals and when you create these things, when you don't hit them, it doesn't make you feel good. And the reality is that, again, Google's unpredictable. It makes the rules. You just have to live within those parameters, right? And so the reality is that you never know how much a blog post or a piece of content is actually gonna bring in traffic. You don't have those numbers. You don't know how well it's gonna do. And so one of the best things you can do is, instead of focusing on the number of visitors, conversions, whatever, instead focus on the number of pieces of content you're gonna create. And the reason for that is that you can actually hit that and control it, right? Never set goals when the metrics are things that you don't have 100% control over, because it'll create a negative kind of dopamine effect, and it just isn't great when you don't actually achieve those things. It doesn't feel good, and it discourages people. I've seen people post in Facebook groups and things like that where they've set SEO goals for the new year in terms of traffic, and again, this is where they mess up, right? And then an algorithm update happens, they get pushed down temporarily, the content they produce doesn't do as well as they'd like. And the interesting thing is, if you actually talk to these people long term, if they actually kept going with the content creation, usually they were okay and things averaged out, or they got more views on this older content, more traffic over time as they kept creating new content. So it's not that they didn't achieve their goals, it's that they made the call to actually determine if these results were final far too early. So again, focus on number of content published, set that as a goal instead of traffic. Number two, don't let the goals and the process of trying to improve where you're at end there. After the amount of time you set for the content quantity goal, check in and see how your content is doing. So actually break down and analyze the results, because the reality is out of a batch of content, there's inevitably going to be pieces of content that just do better. And so your job as a digital marketer is always to be numbers oriented, right? Let the data speak for itself. Don't make random decisions based on emotion, okay? When you have proven data, right? The old saying, don't reinvent the wheel. It's so true. So what you need to do is you need to make sure you're tracking your results. You have things like Google Analytics and properly installed on your website, right? Check it, right? Make sure that this is working. Have different tracking mechanisms in place. Utilize UTM tracking, okay? If you're not familiar with that, look it up. Make sure to study it, because it's something that takes a minute per URL, max probably, and continues to help attribute where people are actually coming from. So actually, number one, again, just capture data. And I know that this probably sounds obvious, but I've talked to people that aren't doing this, and that's kind of crazy to me. You need to be capturing data, especially when Google Analytics is free, right? UTM tracking is free to implement. It doesn't cost anything. So make sure you're tracking your data, and make sure you're then, what I'm going to get to now, looking at that data, breaking it down, seeing which pieces of content are doing well. And when I talk about content doing well, some metrics you can look at is on-page time, right? Do you have conversions from these pieces of content, right? You need to be looking at that sort of thing. Obviously, for most of you watching or for your clients, conversions are going to be what actually matters and what people care about. And so what you want to do is you want to find pieces of content that are, having longer on-page time, where people are more engaged and that have higher conversions. And once you found those pieces of content, clearly there's going to be some sort of pattern, maybe, right? Maybe there's not, and I'll talk about that in a second. But usually there's some sort of pattern that you can kind of glean from that actual data. And so what you want to do is try to figure out, why are these pieces of content doing better? Okay, so you want to really think about it, right? Ask ChatGPT, right? That's another way. I've been trying to include ways you can use AI that isn't going to negatively impact your search. That's one way you can do it. A small thing, but people keep asking me about AI. So there you go. So ask ChatGPT. These are the articles that are doing better, and you can just tell it the article names or whatever, right? And then say, give me articles following this kind of user behavior pattern, they're going to do well. And it'll spit out content topics, and you can go write those content topics, right? Now, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to detect, right? There's not always a super visible pattern, and sometimes it's just random stuff just does well. But what I'd encourage you to do is repeat as best you can that random stuff. So let's say, for example, I have 2 blog posts, and my client is a plumber. One is how to unclog your drain using XX product, whatever the product name is. And let's say I have another blog post, how to know that a plumber is legit and is going to do a good job. Okay, so I have these 2 pieces of content. Those don't really seem linked, right? Like, one is about, a certain product that people are Googling and you're trying to piggyback off that traffic, whereas the other one is about kind of vetting people, right? So in this case, you might want to make another vetting post, like how to tell if my plumber isn't overcharging me, right? Where it's kind of it's along that avenue of people are asking questions. You're targeting people that are searching for this, that maybe aren't as trusting, that want to educate themselves on this, right? And then for the other one, where it's like how to clean a clogged drain with X products, that's just easy. Just make another different product. So just keep going with that, right? So in that case, they're 2 different topics, but maybe people just like both of those topics, right? That could very well be the case. And if you create content related to it and it doesn't work, you just got feedback from the market. So maybe you just got lucky, right? Or maybe people were only looking for that, or maybe people don't care about the other product, right? People aren't searching that. There's not enough search volume, right? So there's a number and multitude of reasons as to why, sometimes if you have a winning content piece and then you make another content piece related to that it may not do well. But just listen to the market and do the best that you can. And remember that naturally, and this is just how SEO works, this is how content marketing works, not every piece of content is going to be a winner. It is what it is. And as long as you learn from that and just keep moving forward and keep trying, you're inevitably going to make winners, okay? Don't stress about it. It's going to happen, right? I've uploaded, a video a day so far this week, and I've kept going. I've had videos that have done better than my channel average, and I've had a video that got literally no views. It got 400 impressions. I even was split testing thumbnails out of the gate, and the thumbnail wasn't good. People didn't want to click it, okay? Both thumbnails, or maybe it was the title or the topic, but you just keep going, right? And you kind of learn from that very quickly. So just pay attention to the data, keep everything I just said in mind, and you should be okay. Number 3, focus on processes, not outcome. So here's the reality. you can improve your results by improving your process. And this is something that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to setting goals and things like that. And the reality is that you can, as you improve your process, even little things can make a significant difference. Perfect example of this. I have a student in the Facebook group, and they just hired a virtual assistant like a couple months ago, so they're still new to kind of managing a team. I mean, it's one person, but you can call it a team, right? And so this person, they had to train them and everything. They're new to this, so things weren't totally optimal, right? And the process that they have with the virtual assistant isn't really fine-tuned yet, where they're doing the content research themselves. They're putting the topics into like a Google Sheets or a Google Doc or something like that, and then they're sharing it with the virtual assistant, and then the virtual assistant is making content. Well, what happened is this individual actually was sick. They were under the weather. And so there was a point in time where the virtual assistant, from what I understand, is on a monthly pay with them. So it's not an hour thing. They're getting this much for the month total. I don't really know if it's part-time or full-time. They didn't really mention that. I'm assuming it's part-time just because they're writing like a piece of content every other day or something like that. But basically, because they were sick, they had downtime that they weren't prepared for, so content topics weren't added to the doc. So the virtual assistant had nothing to do during that time. So that ate into the cost that they were paying this virtual assistant. And so that can cause problems, right? And so because of that, I think there was like 2 less pieces of content that were actually published. And so the reality is that, and this is just kind of separate from processes for a moment, I guess not really, but the more you can do to automate your business to where it runs without you, the better, right? There's a famous book called 4-Hour Workweek. It is somewhere in my shelf behind me. I'd have to find it. But basically, because I do own the book, but the idea is that if you have an online business or you're a digital marketer, you can outsource things enough to where you only have to work 4 hours a day and still get the results of someone working full time, right? And part of that comes from just having good processes. And so one of the things that you have to make sure that you're doing is improving your processes. So maybe instead of doing that on a daily basis, and he's updating that sheet, maybe update the sheet in advance. So actually spend more time doing content research on like Saturday or Sunday or the beginning of the week, where the content sheet then actually has whatever amount of days worth of content in this particular example, so that the virtual assistant has topics, right? Maybe have backup topics in there too. So if he has to take a week off, his business will continue to flow, content will be written and published to his blog, etc. So take a minute and think about your processes and think of ways that you can streamline them, right? I couldn't say that word for some reason for a second. Think about ways you can tweak and improve your processes and just make life easier, right? Because when you make things easier, then you start to get more things done because time is freed up. And so that kind of thing is it has a self-fulfilling cycle that is positive. Okay, so that's something really, really important to consider. I know this was a shorter video than some of my other content, but I just wanted to quickly touch on SEO goals, especially as we are getting closer to the new year. We're, I think, like a week away or less at this point. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. If you got any value out of this, again, please tap that subscribe button, and leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. And until next time, be safe and keep being an SEO ninja. Like and subscribe if you want to become an SEO ninja.